You've probably seen an increase in electric cars like this one around St. John's, along with electric vehicle charging stations. The city has just purchased our first 2 electric cars, a sign of more things to come to support a more sustainable city today and for future generations. Today on Municipal Matters, we're talking with Edmundo Fausto, Manager of Sustainability with the City of St. John's, to explore the Resilient St. John's Community Climate Plan and what the city is doing to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We'll also have a panel discussion with David Day, Manager of Emergency Preparedness with the city, Ashley Smith from Fundamental Inc., and Keith Barrett with Newfoundland Power. We'll discuss changes in climate emergency preparedness, greener ways of doing things, and how you can get started as a homeowner to support sustainability. Welcome back, and we're joined by Edmundo Fausto. Edmundo is the Manager of Sustainability with the City of St. John's. Thank you for joining us, Edmundo.
Thank you very much for having me.
So you've been with the City of St. John's now for roughly about 5 years. So what did you do before joining the city?
Yeah, before joining the city, I actually used to live in the Toronto area, and I used to work with various governments, whether regional governments and local governments, in supporting them to upgrade their level of sustainability, as well as to kind of figure it out how does climate change play into the municipal and regional government context. So
since joining the city, you've been responsible for the lens that's put on climate change, as well as the development of the sustainability plan for the city. Tell us a little bit about that. It's called Resilient St. John's.
Yeah, so that is, in brief, it's the response of the community to the climate emergency declaration, as well as to the reality of climate change. It outlines a path forward for how can we do our fair share with regards to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, as well as how can we, as a community, adapt to the changes that we're already seeing and are projected to come.
So I know that one of the things that's discussed a lot is, why is that important to the city? Why is it that there's been an increased emphasis put on the development of that sustainability plan?
Yeah, so obviously the city has a lot of different departments, and we're doing a lot of very good things. Whenever we did a review, we identified that having a clear path forward for addressing climate change was needed. And through that, and why do we need that? It's because so climate change is a global emergency, and as the realities of climate change become, whether it's through policy or through energy prices or the energy field, and then the weather itself, we need to chart a path forward to make sure that we're doing our fair share. Even though we're few, we still have much room to improve. And also that we're not left behind in the broader context of things, because we found that there is a real risk to being left behind. At the same time, we want to make sure that we're prepared, right? Sometimes just looking back into the weather of the past doesn't really prepare us for what is to come. So it definitely is important to grab lessons learned, but also have a view into what is ahead of us.
We're all seeing the impact of climate change and how it's affecting in different parts of the world and within our country. And you need to look no further than Atlantic Canada or Port aux Basques recently and see what the impacts are. I find it interesting, and many people may not be aware, that we have 2 different plans. We have a community plan and a corporate plan. Perhaps you can explain the difference between the 2.
Yeah, so obviously the City of St. John's is an organization, and like many cases, organizations will try to do obviously what is within their immediate control, like the vehicles that we own, the people that we work with. So the corporate plan makes sure that the city has a path forward to not just to be able to walk the talk and to be able to, I would say, take its own advice and address the different items that are part of the broader community and that we want to see reflected across the various sectors. So one of the big items, it's our energy performance contract. And that's something that is currently moving along.
Yeah, that's a very significant undertaking, and certainly it's a major capital expenditure for the city. Perhaps you can expand a little on how that works and how it's something that really can be seen by the public as we move forward.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the energy performance contract is really the city walking the talk and doing what we're advising others to do. It pretty much facilitates the city to look at our operating costs and our investments and actually treat them as one in a certain sense and be able to invest in the modern technologies that are not that new to many other people and upgrade our facilities, modernize them, as well as with the main focus of reducing our energy use and our greenhouse gas emissions. One way that I can see it is like we want to both reduce how much energy we use and at the same time then for the energy that we do still have to use, we want to make sure that it is low carbon and it has a low impact in the greenhouse gas emissions.
In many things that we do, collaboration is extremely important, and we see that with our community action plan. But we see it in every aspect of our sustainability plan, how we need to work with other levels of government and with the community to get the desired outcomes. Yeah. So the importance of federal government initiatives and funding is extremely important to carrying out these plans.
Yeah, and actually that was a big component of developing the energy performance contract. We spent a decent amount of time even putting together not just the scope of work and I would say the technical details, but actually the financials and making sure that we're looking at all those programs and that we're taking advantage of those programs to bring that value back to our community here locally. And it goes from something as simple as changing a light bulb, in our case, changing tens of thousands of light bulbs, to then replacing a heating system. Yeah,
we also saw federal government initiatives to assist us with installing charging stations, and which is a major undertaking to develop that network. Where are we with that? Because people are always asking, well, do we have enough charging stations, and what's our plan to get there?
Yeah, so we have now several sites open available. In many cases, we've collaborated very closely with our utility locally to both learn from their experience and learn and share ours. So we have most of them installed. I would say all of the 26 charging stations that we committed to install that are available to the public. They're all in the ground currently. The last one coming online was in Churchill Square. And we are seeing actually a significant uptake on them. And we're going to be monitoring them to see when is there a logic to actually expand on that system. And we're definitely, the installations were made with the future in mind of that there will be additional requirements down the road.
We're also doing some studies into the electrification of the Metrobus fleet. It's not as simple as just going out and buying electric buses and start running them. There's a lot of infrastructure issues, a lot of other issues. Where is that process now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And we're actually really well advanced into the process. And, obviously, as you can imagine, we're not planning to completely change everything overnight.
Right.
But it's definitely, obviously, we want to encourage people to use the bus, first of all, no matter what fuel it's using. And second of that, we want to make sure that they have the option to even create efficiencies within that, how that bus is run. And we're looking at everything from battery electric buses to hydrogen buses to the diesel buses that we currently have. And pretty much the main focus is we just want to make sure that we reduce the risk of the operation over the long run. We want to run it as well as it can be run and as cost effectively as it can be run as the rest of the world shifts.
Yeah, and there's a lot of considerations in that, the distances that are achievable, the infrastructure in the buildings, just the training that's going to be required to do that. So what do you think is the big issue that we need to face in the next short term as we look at this?
Yeah, so in our study for the community climate plan, the Resilient St. John's plan, we found that energy efficiency needs to be at the very forefront of our thinking. That it's a bit old school in some ways, but it is the best bang for your buck, right? While all the new technologies and everything else is definitely going to help us get there, Sometimes just having very good building envelopes, very good insulation, just generally just makes a better building, and it helps our residents in reducing their overall costs, as well as looking at their homes and other properties and creating more value there.
Well, thank you very much, Edmundo.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Recycling at home is one of the easiest ways to help protect our environment. Believe it or not, a lot of what we're throwing away in Newfoundland and Labrador can actually be recycled instead of sent to the landfill. And since you're already throwing it to the curb, the only difference is the color of the bag it's going in. So let's break it down. What can you put in your blue bag? For starters, boxboard, cardboard, paper bags, newspaper, toilet paper rolls, the majority of cardboard and paper products can be recycled curbside. A lot of metal and plastic containers are also accepted. Aluminum pie plates, soup cans, plastic food trays, shampoo bottles, butter tubs and lids, laundry detergent containers, and milk cartons are just a few examples. But remember, some items are not accepted in your blue bag. Placing items like glass containers, coffee cups, tissue, wrapping paper, and styrofoam may cause your bag to be left behind. To ensure your recyclables find a second life, you should also ensure they are free of liquids, garbage, or food. And that's it. You just leave it right there at the curb. We all have a part to play. Join the curbside revolution. Learn more at recycleathomενl.ca.
Curious about what's happening in the city? Now you can stay up to date with all things events, arts, culture, and recreation. Follow What's Happening St. John's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You've got plans.
Welcome back. Continuing on our discussion about climate change, we're now just going to discuss the impact of climate change on the city of St. John's. And joining us is David Day, Manager of Emergency Preparedness with the city of St. John's, Ashley Smith, Managing Director at Fundamental Inc., and Keith Barrett, who is the Manager of Energy Solutions at Newfoundland Power. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, what are the risks to St. John's as a result of climate change, David?
So, it's traditional rain, drizzle, fog, snow, wind, that we see on a yearly basis here. But, when it becomes noticeable to us here at the city is when it starts to take extreme measures. So when we get large amounts of snow, like January 2020, when we get Hurricane Igor, Hurricane Larry blowing through, and then these micro bursts of rain that destroy, areas of the city like Kilbride last year. That's what we consider as part of our risk profile, and we get concerned about.
So, Ashley, is there anything in particular that concerns you about this?
The concerns are broad and narrow. Certainly, as David said, you're looking at the extremes. One concern is that what we call an extreme event now is projected to become more probable. And so Professor Joel Finnis at Memorial University has identified that the 1 in 100 year storm, and what that means is the storm that has 1 in 100 chance of happening each year, is going to become between the 1 in 10 and 1 in 5 year within about 25 years. Mm-hmm. And so the concern generally is that you have to make a risk assessment, and you have to evaluate the probability that your infrastructure is going to fail and what those outcomes might be, so that you start to plan and you adapt so that your solutions, whatever they may be, as you start to implement and build and continue to upkeep, can address the climate as it's changing, and you don't just put back what would have been there previously. Yeah. And that's something that Fundamental looks at all the time with the municipalities.
I guess from the power system view, this is a very major concern for Newfoundland Power.
Yeah, one of our biggest risk with the reliability of the system are weather-related events. So as storms become stronger, they become more frequent, it becomes more challenging to maintain that infrastructure. You know, our reliability record is second to none right now at Newfoundland Power. We do a good job. We have a really robust system. But you know, the storms are intensifying, they are happening more frequently, and that is posing challenges to us in terms of, you know, maintaining the infrastructure we have and then having to build to new standards, as Ashley kind of referred to.
So David, you know, I'm sure that you get asked this a lot as the manager of emergency preparedness. Our emergency preparedness plan is an all hazards plan. Could you expand on how that works?
Sure. So it is actually what we call an all hazards plan. So what we plan for, what we train to with our staff and our partners, is that we have processes and mechanisms in place so that we can deal with whatever might happen to be thrown at us. We do look, and we just finished this year completing our risk and hazard analysis, and you know, no surprise, precipitation events, snow events, high wind events is what came up as our major concern. But at the same time, the process that we use to deal with that can also be used to deal with the water shortage. So we take that approach of all hazards. If we took the approach of that we looked at each hazard individually, we would have protocols, you know, in binders lined up in shelves that would be almost too much to look at on a yearly basis. So by taking this approach is certainly a more realistic one.
So Keith, what can residents do to protect themselves or in anticipation of these events?
Yeah, so preparedness is always big, you know, making sure you have a supply of water, a flashlight, batteries, a communication method, your cell phone is charged. But you want to talk about like preventative measures too, is, you know, using energy wisely, ensuring that, you know, your home is sealed up well and insulated well, so you're reducing the amount of energy you're using. And, you know, electrification is going to happen as part of decarbonization as we move to try to prevent some of these activities that are happening. And that will involve investment in the electricity system, but the more of that demand we can control through being energy efficient or shifting around electric vehicle load, for example, that, you know, creates more reliability on the electricity grid, and it creates more affordability on the electricity grid. So, you know, there's things you can do for emergency preparedness, but also actions we can take now that'll help us down the road.
So Ashley, given that change that's taking place, what can the residents of St. John's do to play their part in that change that's coming?
Absolutely. There's a lot of things residents can do. I mean, electrification is coming. And so moving in the direction where you sort of holistically, right? We would use that language when you talk about an all hazards plan, it's a holistic. So you start to look at energy efficiency in your home, because more energy efficient homes are actually more durable as well. So when you add insulation to the walls of your home, you not only reduce the energy that you consume, but you also can maintain a temperature inside for a longer period of time. So you can look at that. Anything that you can do to move towards self-sufficiency on a micro level. So if you can afford an electric vehicle, that's a program that the utility has a program for, because you can power your home with with the battery that's in your electric vehicle for a short time. You can also look at the utility's net metering program, and so you can start by installing solar panels to help offset. When the power goes out, if you just do a net metering, you can't use that immediately, but it also helps reduce the burden on the grid overall. And if you then use that as a phase one to potentially install energy storage and batteries next, you can put yourself in a position where for a period of 1 to 3 days, you can sustain yourself in a safe and comfortable place until emergency services can get to everyone, until the utility can, sort out whatever they need to do on their end, and then you sort of work together as that network, right? So it's a resiliency approach where you sort of look at how the actors can interrelate with one another.
Yeah. So Keith, given the changes that are going to have to be made to deal with the impact of climate change and to help with the mitigation of of the into the future and the transition that's going to happen, what kind of changes to building infrastructure do you envision are going to take place over the next while?
Yeah, so again, it kind of relates back to electrification, and we have programs now that are government sponsored to help people convert from oil to electric. So that's going to impact the customer-owned infrastructure in terms of their panel box and things like that, and it's also going to impact utility-owned infrastructure in terms of our supply points, transformers, and things like that. So again, we encourage people through our Take Charge programs, which is a partnership between Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland Labrador Hydro, to look at ways to manage their energy usage effectively. And we try to attack customer barriers to doing that, whether it's an upfront cost barrier, an education barrier, or something that's just not happening in the marketplace that we can influence. So we want customers to, there's opportunities to certainly electrify more end uses and use more energy and create GHG reductions. But we want you to kind of remember to offset that as well where you can by improving your insulation, looking at Energy Star appliances, looking at ways you can reduce your water usage, for example. And the Take Charge programs provide an avenue for a lot of customers to do that.
So Ashley, do you have any as to add to that? What do you see happening in the future?
I don't know that I have anything specific to add. It can be overwhelming on the part of the homeowner to try and undertake some of these things, because you, as the average person, you might not know a lot about building science or architecture or construction project management or any of those things. And so the Take Charge program can certainly help when you engage with those folks. And there's the Federal Greener Homes program as well, which has a grant component and a loan component. And they also have representatives who can help you along the path. And so I think my suggestion would just be to overcome that activation anxiety or whatever that is, that moment where you're like, oh, I can do it later, and just sort of overcome that and just start the process, right? Because it is a transition, it's a process. No one expects it to be fixed overnight. We just have to start walking with a slightly different gait. Yeah.
David, we saw over the last year wildfires in the Western Canada, in Nova Scotia, and they seem to be becoming more common. And a couple of years ago in the Kenmount Terrace area, we had a very close call there. I would say that took some great work on behalf of all the personnel to intervene. Does that change your emergency preparedness plan? Do you have to make modifications to address that?
We don't, but I guess what we had to change, and you listen to what Ashley and Keith have been talking about, is that we're talking about changing behaviors. And I think what we have to do, and we keep on referencing 72 hours, 3 days, and that's a program that's been promoted by Public Safety Canada for several years. Be prepared for 72 hours. As Canadians, and I think as Newfoundlanders, I think we're quite used to being, we can take care of ourselves. We're pretty resilient people, but we're getting to the point now, because of the extremities of these events, that we've got to be more prepared for these type of events. And I think that's one of our greatest challenges, recognizing the fact that we need to be ready. We all get our storm chips for 20 centimeter snowstorm. Well, let's don't forget our storm milk and our bread, those basic necessities that we need to last the 72 hours. And I think that's where we're headed, and that's a change that needs to take place.
It's also worthwhile having a thought to, if you did have to evacuate, what is your plan of where you're going?
Absolutely.
Where you're going to go, and what you need to do that.
How do you contact your family that may not be home? What's your central meeting point? And this is all referring to a plan. We have an all hazards plan at the city. Right. Families need to have a plan of how they're going to stay together, how they're going to contact each other.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a great conversation. I certainly appreciate your input and the help for the residents. And thank you for joining us, and we will see you again soon.
Did you enjoy the show? Let us know. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns with anything that you've seen on this episode of Municipal Matters, please drop us a line by email at municipalmatters@stjohns.ca. We will try to answer any questions that you may have.
Every year, it gets easier to see just how real climate change is. It's time for us to make better choices and take action. By recycling more at home, we make a world of difference, one blue bag at a time. We keep waste out of landfills, and we extend the life of precious natural resources. We all have a role to play, which is why MMSB is partnering with communities across the province to increase recycling at home. Join the Curbside revolution. Learn more at recycleathomemnl.ca.
Children want to learn new skills. High Five programs, like the ones at the City of St. John's, provide them with activities and tasks that make them feel special, important, and successful. Learn more about the city's accredited High Five recreation programs today.
And some nasty weather rolling in across the country today.
Extreme weather can hit quickly. Because of climate change, high-risk weather is becoming more common and severe across Canada. 1 in 3 Canadian adults have experienced a major weather-related emergency or disaster. Know the risks in your area and learn what actions you can take. Are you ready? Visit getprepared.ca, a message from the Government of Canada.